Welcome back. This is Eleni of Transformational Love, Eleni's Tribe. We're here with Cindy Rand, and she's the author of The Busy Woman's Guide to Holistic Health and Wellness. Thank you, Cindy. As we discussed in the first half of this interview, you find yourself in a situation that you never dreamed you would be in. You were in a situation with a husband who was being abusive, and you knew you needed to get yourself and your daughter out of it. We started discussing your book, and we talked about holistic wellness, and we talked about pivotal moments in your life and how you were able to take this mindset, this resiliency and your identity in Christ through these pivotal moments in your life. But before we get there, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the fact that domestic abuse does not happen in a cookie cutter fashion. You may think you've dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's, right? And you still find yourself in a situation where you don't see the red flags, or there weren't any red flags. It just appeared after the fact, right? And sometimes they don't even happen right away. It's a process of over the years. Maybe you're a confident person, and then you find yourself starting to slowly become less and less confident, or less and less able to figure out who you are. You start to lose yourself, who you think you are as a self, as a person. I always compare it to the paint on the wall slowly being peeled. It gets chipped away a piece at a time. It's not always blatantly evident. It doesn't always include physical abuse, and it doesn't always include drugs or alcohol even. So I just kind of wanted you to kind of comment on that, and then we're going to move towards the direction of the book and the trajectory of your life, the journey you've been on. And like you said, we're still becoming, but you're not just a survivor, you're a thriver. I believe that. I teach that as well. We're not just survivors, we
Right.
are thrivers. So I want you to take it away from there, and then we'll go into the book.
Well, one thing that I've told a lot of my coaching clients and even, friends over the course of years that have dealt with the same thing, basically, you have to look at the source. A lot of times, if a person, some people use the word, narcissist. It is what it is. But sometimes, instead of, of course, you want to look in the mirror, you have to consider the source. So when a person is unhappy, they want everyone around them unhappy. If
Okay.
a person is unsure of their identity, then they are going to basically kind of, translate that type of energy over to you. A lot of times when people are secretly unhappy, that's a lot of times why you end up with a monster that you didn't know you had because they're secretly unhappy. So, a lot of fast forwarding. However, when you try in a relationship, in a marriage, or, whatever the case may be, to kind of figure out what those underlying problems are in that relationship, and that doesn't work, then I feel like you should, fight for your own life. You should take flight for your own life. And I say that because if a person wants help and you're offering help and they don't receive it, you can't allow that to be your problem. You have to move on.
Okay, that's a great point. And the whole topic of narcissism and its nuances and different ways it presents or manifests itself, that's a topic we could talk about another day. Personal opinion, just my understanding is that a lot of times narcissists are attracted to smart, educated, attractive women. And maybe even on a subconscious level, they need what you have. Like it's like a dry sponge soaking up all the water, right? Which leaves the other person dry. Is my analogy here. I just kind of made it up as a fly on the fly. But I think they don't present themselves as a narcissist, or they don't present themselves as needy,
That's
and they present themselves, they mirror you and present themselves as having the same qualities that you have, or the ones that you as a woman, they play into what women are looking for perhaps. Anyways, but again, that's a topic for another day. I just kind of wanted to throw that out there because I think it's a very interesting topic, because of course narcissism is a clinical diagnosis, but I also think it has nuances that are not clinical, that are behavioral, and maybe they're cognitive and not necessarily psychiatric in nature. So
Mhm.
with that said, let's talk about your book. Let's talk about the journey you've taken and the bumps in the road, and what are maybe your top, I won't call them coping mechanisms. What are the things that you learned work for you that help you be a thriver, not just a survivor? What can you offer the women out there through the lessons, the other obstacles that you faced in life. Because we all, I mean, I'm sorry, it would be naive of me to think that you've only faced one obstacle in your life and you overcame it. You're laughing because we all know that's not true, right? And then you just magically got to this point and you wrote this book. So I want to hear more.
Well, for time restraints, I won't get into all of that, but I will
Right.
say, well, this is my book here. I'm not sure if you can see it. The Busy Woman's Guide to Holistic Health and Wellness. Actually, the subtitle is How to Fuel Your Work-Life Balance Without Losing Your Power, Passion, and Purpose. And this is volume 1 here. Volume 1 is about your environment. And basically, if a person were to consider the pillars of wellness, basically, as far as like, there are like 8 dimensions, 7 dimensions, 6. So it goes back into the 70s and 60s with the dimensions of the pillars of wellness. Basically, what I am starting with this series of books is the holistic functional wellness, because there is a difference. And so a lot of times people say, well, what is holistic wellness? What is holistic living? What is it? Basically, in gist, and I just like to keep things simple, I tell people it's the whole you, mind, body, spirit. Sometimes people want to focus on one thing versus the other, like I mentioned earlier about being broken inside, but I had the outer appearance as if everything was together, but I was broken inside. But again, because I knew who I belong to, who created me, and that he created me to thrive. It's like you can sit here and roll around in this spilt milk and keep feeling sorry for yourself and sing that pity party song, or you need to get it together. And so again, when you're rearing another life, you have to set all types of examples. Sometimes we want to cry, we want to break down, and sometimes we don't. There have been times where I was very transparent, to let her know, and I'm still that person right now today. It doesn't mean that because I'm the parent that I'm made of stone. I hurt, I cry, I yearn, all those types of things. But with the book, what I did was like a culmination of some of my life experiences in relation to changing your environment in this volume 1, changing your scenery, changing the people around you. I think I got a chapter in there. Yeah, the friends, frenemies, and foes. Your predestined, your mission, your personal mission. There's the phone ringing and a lot of things going on here. So your predestined place, those things that you would like to do basically in the future. There are different chapters in there. There's this one that I'm thinking about at this moment where I explain how you react versus responding. How when things hit you, or controversies come, or adversarial issues or acts, how you need to step back from it, absorb it, and then execute a plan so that you can move forward. A lot of times, especially in abusive relationships, you find yourself, making a decision on like you say, on the fly. And that's not like taking care of your entire body, mind, and spirit. You take care of your body, mind, and spirit in segments, in sessions. Digesting things is just like we digest our food. You want to digest things and have healthy dosages. And sometimes we're not able to digest things in healthy dosages because something's going on that we've got to, give an immediate response. So in the book, I go on as well, talking about how people, basically as a busy person, take the time out to take care of yourself, take the time out to say no if you need to, take the time out to stop and absorb and then decide. Don't feel obligated to move so fast because the pressure is wanting you to move so fast. Your mental health a lot of times depends on it. And that's the thing a lot of times people don't want to talk about as well. They think mental health is like, okay, she's crazy. No, mental health does not mean a person is crazy. Mental health means I'm taking care of all of my faculties, from my mind, from my body, from my soul, from my spirit. I'm taking care of all of those things.
That's great. So I kind of jotted down a couple notes so we could go a couple different directions here. I love the holistic approach, the functional holistic approach, mind, body, spirit. That's what I teach as well. That's what I support. And I think there are times when our mind or our body or spirit are not in alignment. Maybe you need to nurture your body a little more, or maybe you need to spend more time clearing your mind or spend time closer to God and work on your spiritual growth, right? And it would be in an ideal world that would all happen all the time at once, right? I kind of look at it as you're pouring into this vessel, and sometimes you're pouring in from the left, from the right, from the top, from the back, from the front, and whatever it needs, it keeps filling. But those are those different areas of your life that you pour into what you need. You surround yourself, hopefully, with people and with resources that will bring those things like into fruition. Like a flower, it needs the sunlight, right? We want to surround ourselves with people that are positive, that have that sunlight. You talked about friends, frenemies, and foes, and I have to think that a lot of times people we think are our friends, and I don't want to go get negative with it, but I do have a point with it. Sometimes we have to have more discernment who our friends are, who our frenemies are, and who our foes are. Because I don't necessarily think that people who call themselves our friends are being friends. Perhaps they think they're being helpful, but we don't necessarily know what their lenses are, that their life experiences, where they're coming from. And even if they're well intentioned, their advice may not be good for us. It may not be healthy, and it may not be in alignment with where God wants us to be or where we need to be. And from the outside, it might look good. And this is something I learned when I was tutoring on a youth a rehab unit. Was a lot of the kids, the counselor there would tell them once they got out of rehab, they would find people that would want them to drink with them, or people that wanted them to be around them doing the things they were doing before, because it made them comfortable. They didn't want to be uncomfortable because that made them different. So they could either give in or they could get a new group of friends, right? So I feel like a lot of times it really does matter who your friends are and the kind of advice you're given, because it can affect the trajectory of your life. So I found it interesting you brought up friends, frenemies, and foes. I'd be curious to hear your perspective on that, because frenemies aren't always obvious, and friends can be frenemies or foes we just don't even know. And maybe a friend is a foe and they don't even know it themselves. So,
Well, again, you can't define people's circles. But what I reference in the book are some quick, simple ways to kind of evaluate or reevaluate your friend circle.
okay.
Uh, the thing that I like most about what I wrote there is something that I grew to do.
Okay.
Uh, I grew to trust who God had to place in my life. That's what I grew to do. So there were some instances, and again, um, everybody's circle is different. You have
Mm-hmm.
different people for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one person may be strong in this area for you, and another person may be strong or lacking, in another area. So it's always good to have a combination of people. But I
Yes.
feel like everybody should be doing something positive.
Right.
You've got some that are like leeches and, energy vampires. I've heard that terminology of energy vampires, always needing you to do something for them, but they're not doing anything for you. The thing is, with relationship, there should be give and take, reciprocity, and resolution. And so a lot of times, if your relationship's a quick way to analyze it, if you don't have that positive give or take in a relationship, you're constantly giving and never get anything in return. That's something that a person would need to reevaluate and possibly reevaluate their circles of influence. Now, when I say trusting God for who he has in the circle, and this is like a really like a beast of a prayer to pray, but its dynamics, you'll find that you're more at peace holistically, personally and professionally. So, like, say, for example, and I do reference that as well in the book. Um, you've got like a friend or person that you thought would be a part of your life forever. They didn't die, they didn't get sick, they just disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what happened to so and so? I mean, they're not answering their phone. I can't find them, or I wonder what happened to them, because you thought that person was going to be in your life forever.
Yeah.
It is true that some people, some friends or people are for seasons, and some for reasons, and some are for a lifetime. So, with that being said, my advice to many, and as well as I referenced in the book, that sometimes you have to consider when those people just, get missing, that God is systematically removing a person, place, or thing out of your life because it is holding up his plan for your life. is holding up your destined place.
Mm.